Good evening. How are you guys doing? Nice to see you this evening, or is it? So, welcome to the introductory session. So I think the intention of today is to probably catch up and then also talk through some of the feedback that we received from the candidates that were with us during the 2019 board course. So we've received quite a lot of interesting and constructive feedback in terms of the kind of challenges that were experienced, as well as what led to one of the, I think the word might be scary results that we've seen in a long time. I think last time something like this happened, that was about 2015, where in the June ITC there was about a 33% pass rate. So in terms of, it's one thing to see it before you are there, and it's one thing to be part of that state. So I think for us it was something that was a bit concerning, and we've listened to quite a lot of things and quite a lot of feedback that we've received, but I think there's still quite more that we can get from our interactions, and for us what we then did is that we took quite a lot of that feedback into designing the upcoming board course. So some elements, when you look at the timetable, stand out. For instance, one, the fact that there seems to be more assessments, and assessments where we expect you to write, and we actually work with you in terms of providing you with feedback. Then additionally, there is also an element of script review, which is something that we firmly believe in. But even from that, the process, we also took time to review it and to see how best we can add value to that process, so that by the time the program actually goes on a break, which you'll see it's expected to be end of November, in order to be successful. So a lot of people, I think, have gone through this, and I think it's quite important for you to then take a moment or to reflect what could have been your own specific challenges, and make sure that you use the resources that we've made available in terms of what? In terms of just making sure you are well prepared at the end of the day. So that is just in terms of a bit of catch up, in terms of what you can really expect over the next couple of weeks in the program. And also with regards to the question banks, you will also notice that you'll get to see that we've also taken a bit of a different approach, because we believe that there's always three fundamental issues when it comes to success. One is the ability to have enough time to study, and two, it's the ability to really understand where your shortfall is sitting. Are you in the basics side of it, or are you in the exam approach side of it? So all those things, we then said that how do we bring them together and create a program that actually talk to those particular shortfalls and get to meet the needs of specific candidates. So that is essentially the design of the ITC 2020 preparatory repeaters program. And what we've then also put as a mechanism is the opportunity to say that if we are finding that by the time the program goes on a break, you still have a couple of breaks, or a couple of shortfalls, then there's some intervention that we expect to incorporate as part of the ITC 2020 prep program that will be kicking off in December. But the idea is that you need to recognize the support and you need to actually take the time to truly reflect on what are the issues that are specific to you and make sure that you really engage with the team in order to benefit from it. So to then start off as part of the program, the first part of the presentation, or just to go through the high-level presentation, first part is the welcome session in terms of just welcoming or introducing you to the Endonamo brand. And then the second part is to then talk about the exam, and there's a new structure, the one that they've implemented from 2019, and also talk through what? Talk through the structure of the program. So those will be the fundamental thing. In terms of exam technique, there's some guidance in this little booklet, but the guidance is expected to benefit you throughout the program. So a lot of it, we're not going to spend time on it today, but what I just want us then to at least get to, so it's a point where we can say that this is the program, this is how you are expected to engage with it in order to truly benefit and make sure that come Jan 2019, success is secured. So first, the idea with our brands is that at the end of the day, it's all about making an impact. It's all about making sure that every time you come to any of our classes, you engage with any aspect of the program, you find that there is value to it. And it's even more so because of one, the financial commitment that you need to make towards the course, as well as the investment in terms of time. So the idea for us is that everything that we do needs to be beneficial to you at the end of the day. So when we talk assessment, when you talk lectures, when you talk tutorial, that everything that we will have put our minds to will be directed to helping you secure success in ITC 2020. So that is something that we believe that everybody that comes through our doors and registers as a candidate with us should hold us accountable to. Then we've always said that there's some things that as part of offering our programs, they need to be there in order to make sure that the offering is comprehensive and at the end of the day, it's relevant to the candidates that we aim to provide the support to. So first of all, which is something that we'll also talk to, is that you'll find that as part of the program, you get access to the CTA 2019 full suite of videos. So the idea there is for you to use those in order to bridge any knowledge gaps. And I think one of the things that you will see as part of the program, when we actually get to work through the ITC 2019 Jan and June, you'll find that there are some areas maybe that exam approach could have contributed in terms of your performance, and there's some areas where you can find that lacking the basic fundamental in relation to a particular topic could have contributed. So what we are saying is that you need to really sit and be honest with yourself in terms of where you are knowledge-wise, and if there are any gaps where you find or you believe that could be a limiter or something restrictive when it comes to your success in ITC 2020, it's important to start listing them down now and saying that you've got about 3-4 months before Jan, and you actually spend time dedicating to those particular videos. So you also notice that as part of this program, we've prepared some kind of a study schedule just to give you guidance from now and up until we get to the end of September, to say that this is how we want you to get back to the rhythm. This is what we expect you to do in order to be able to to recognize where you are and what needs to happen to really get you success. Then the WhatsApp community is something that we still consider to be we still consider to be of significance for us. So the idea there is that you've got access to your lecturers 24/7 to actually pose and ask any question that is relevant to you, whether it could be you're working through text, there will be someone available to address the text queries, accounting, and so on and so on. And even more so, it's a student community for us, so it's not just a platform to actually ask questions, but you get an opportunity to get more encouraged with where the other candidates are doing, and also get to have some of your responses cleared up by some of those students. Then the other key element is the set of what? Is the set of printed notes that you've got. So in addition, or to complement the online learning, it's, for us, we consider it important for this to be complemented by printed notes. So it's a bit traditional, but also psychologically, they say that working through on a printed paper, writing things down and marking them down is much more beneficial, and things stick much better compared to what? Compared to just having the material online. So whether you are face-to-face or online or international, you will get printed material as part of the program. Then courier of material will also courier the material. So for South African candidates, the tuition is inclusive of what? Of the tuition is inclusive of the delivery. So once you are registered and made the registration deposit, we arrange for the courier of your materials as soon as possible. And for the international candidates, depending on where you are, there's usually an additional charge that you will need to pay in order to get the material over the border. Then live streaming is something that we've committed to from now on, to say that throughout the program, all the classes that we're going to have will be live streamed, in order to just give you the flexibility of whether you need to come to class or whether you need to catch up the classes at your own comfort. Then for the face-to-face, there's some nice elements that we've also just put in terms of just making sure that the facilities that we are sitting at are actually available for your benefit throughout the program. So you can actually come and use it to do what? Use it to study at any time. If you wish to have discussion with some of for some of the candidates, it's something that you can use as part of what? As part of the offering. If you need to access the internet, this internet that's available throughout the program, whether you're using or your own laptop or you're accessing this from one of the available laptops, that's up to you. Then also throughout the program, we've got what? We've got refreshments to help you throughout the days, especially now going to summer. It's going to be a bit hot, and the long days can be very, very daunting. So that's something that we always pride of in terms of just providing you the relevant support. So that is essentially the brand, the Endonam as we see it. But now the most important thing is the program. What can you expect over the next couple of months? So, one, this is the new SAICA competency guidelines. So this is something that they introduced or they amended in 2018 for first implementation in 2019. So if you compare, or you're working through past papers, so sitting for a full past paper before 2018 will not give you a true reflection of the kind of paper that you're going to expect. So the idea here is that they've reduced the levels for the number of marks for some competency, and they've actually, the biggest change essentially is that they've now averaged the weighting of the 4 major disciplines, and they're all of equal weighting. And you'll then notice that what they're essentially saying is that accounting is no longer the dominant part of the paper. That it's quite possible to say that in a past paper you saw it with 100 marks, but here it will be a very big stretch if you ever see accounting with 100 marks. The minimum that it can get to, or it can start from, is 60, with the maximum being what? Being 100 marks. So if there is quite a lot of accounting, we are saying that it can only contribute to 25% of the paper. In other words, being strong in accounting nowadays is no longer an advantage, but you actually need to be strong across all the 4 major disciplines. And Then what they essentially did is that auditing and tax were some of the disciplines that were sitting between 60 and 80, but now they can go as much as to what? As to 100. And that's another big change that one needs to note. Then of concern or of interest is the fact that they've now combined management, accounting, and finance. Previously, they used to look at them as two separate disciplines, meaning that you could be sitting in one ITC paper and be clear that you're going to get a minimum of 40 marks for management accounting. And you were going to get a minimum of 40 marks for finance. So management accounting and finance was previously a minimum of 80 marks and a maximum of 100 to 120, if I'm not mistaken. Then what they've done now is that they've now considered it to be a single thing, meaning that you never know where they're going to land. And that's something that is quite important as you prepare for the ITC Gen 2020, to say that you need to look at this as a single discipline. Because if you look at the recent ITC, which is the June exam, you'll find that management accounting costing, as we know it, only had 25 marks. And in order for them to then meet that particular threshold, finance was the one that was dominant in that particular discipline. So it's something that is quite important, because if you then reflect on the same in Gen, management accounting was a big question, and it was accounting for about 58 marks, which is the costing side. And again, finance on the other hand had about 20 marks, which was that big weighted average costing question in the Gen ITC exam. So that is something that makes this paper now a bit unpredictable and a bit tricky, because you never know whether the focus in the upcoming exam is going to be on the costing side or is going to be on the finance side. So when you prepare for that particular discipline, there's no that notion of I'm not good in costing and I might be fine. Because essentially, if you're sitting for Gen and you get another 50 to 60 mark question on costing, you have to actually pass it in order to do well in that particular sitting. So that is something that you need to really take into consideration compared to any of the previous exam papers. So we don't know whether the combination is to them saying that you shouldn't be surprised as a student if you go there and 100 marks is just on costing or 100 marks is on finance. So that is something that is also not so clear. Strategy and risk is something that remained constant from 2018 to 2019. But one of the things that we've seen that they are now focusing quite a lot on is ethics. And based on our feedback of Gen ITC performance, we saw that a lot of candidates really struggled with this particular aspect. And one of the things that we've then now did when it comes to the two disciplines, the last two. So if you look at them, you'll then notice that actually the two disciplines, strategy, risk management, and governance plus ethics. If you check the minimum, it means that the minimum between them is 60 marks and the maximum between them is 120. And looking at them individually and comparing to any CTA preparation, you will realize that at CTA we never give it as much attention as SAICA is giving it now. And if you reflect in terms of especially the performance for UNISA candidates, and you compare the CTA 2018 exams, you can imagine that some of those things are some of the things that candidates were not really prepared to handle. And from our point, we then said, all right, if this is what SAICA is saying, this is what our program needs to talk to. So you will then notice that this time, for the first time, there's a full day session on ethics and a full day session on risk and strategy. Just to say that since this is a significant component, we need our candidates to be well prepared going into ITC 2020. So that is our commitment in terms of just responding to how they've amended this, because ethics before was sitting at 0 to 20, meaning that if you didn't get any ethics or if you got it, you didn't need it in order to pass. But if you look at Gen, in Gen, there was quite a lot of ethics, and the tricky thing about it is that it always attaches itself to a big question. So while you are busy going through each and every question, you need to be able to see the ethical dimensions or dilemmas that are coming out from that particular situation. And this complementing it with the changes in CPC, it becomes a very important topic for you to what? To just familiarize and be well prepared going into ITC 2020. So the idea for us is to then say that, all right, looking at this, how does our program essentially respond to it? First, accounting, not because that it's now still a dominant topic, but because of the volume, you'll find that it's got about 3 full-day sessions. Then management, accounting, and finance, there are 2-day sessions that are dedicated to it. Auditing and assurance, again, because of volume and also its significance, it's also got 2 full-day sessions. Taxation, volume, as well as the weighting has also resulted in in a full-day session to it. Whereas ethics, risk management and governance, as well as ethics, we've now thought of them as a separate discipline, and also they too have got have got a 2-day session in the program. So that's something that you just need to just consider when you review the entire program, in terms of, if you are to also go and review a script, how will you say that those other disciplines that maybe you were not so well aware of, or you were not mindful of, how much did they impact on your overall performance? Then there's effective and efficient communication. So they've toned down that a bit and said that was previously 20 to 40 marks, but now they're only limiting it to They're only limiting it to 30 marks. But it's still a significant amount of marks, because when you review or look at it, you'll then realize that, oh, wait, hold on. If I get all the communication marks, it means that at the end of the day, I've secured a minimum of 20 marks, which is guaranteed. Then it means that from the other discipline, you need to make sure that you do you get, because if you then consider those to be 6 of them, then essentially you are looking at You are looking at about 30 across each discipline in order to get to a pass. So you just need to make sure that for each and every discipline, you are capable, or you are well prepared to get half the marks if they are pitched at At a minimum level to really pass. And even when you are reviewing a script, so this is something that we're going to incorporate as part of the 2020 script reviews, to say that when you get your feedback report, you need to see how well you've done against each discipline and how you need to actually address any of the shortfalls. So that's something that we've now committed to say that we need to give you feedback in terms of how SAICA is actually assessing your script, so that you get a better sense of how to actually target it. Then the program essentially, it's now more intense, and as I said, it's got quite a lot of feedback opportunities. And what we are saying is, sit, consider the timetable, and plan for all the assessments. Because the rationale for us is that a lot of work, or the significance, or what really matters, will come from you rather than from us. That we can put this material, all these videos, and every question that is out there in front of you. But at the end of the day, it is you that has got the power to really make it work. So essentially, we are saying that we will then need to do 1, tutorials. And so, first, the lectures I've spoken about in terms of how we've structured that. Then I think for me, the next important part is are the tutorials. So when it comes to the tutorials, this now you'll find that we've also consolidated them to say that there's only 4 impactful tutorials. And in those 4 tutorials, we are now saying that those are 100-mark tutorials that we want you to submit throughout the program. And in addition, the submission dates of those tutorials are actually spread out to really give you an opportunity to work through the videos, to work through your notes, and really attempt those tutorials to the best of your ability before submission. So that is something that you will then need to consider quite carefully as part of the program, to say that I really need to see where I am. Because the tutorials are something that you will be expected to write at home or at your own convenience. And the idea there is probably that we are not testing the exam approach at this particular point in time, but we are testing on your grasp of the technicality or the technical understanding and application of various concepts. So for us, we are saying that when it comes to tutorial, it gives you the opportunity to see how well you have understood the different concept that forms part of the syllabus. Then number two, we then have what? We then have the exams. So you will then notice that the idea or with the exams, there is also different approach to the exams. The first set of exams will then be individual exams. And individual exams for us is to say that this will be day one, or it'll be structured as an ITC exam in terms of a 2-day period. But the first day, you will have 2 papers. But in those 2 papers, the first paper will focus on a particular discipline. So the only catch is that you will not know which discipline you're going to be focusing on that particular day. So out of the 4 sittings, you can actually then get into day one, and you find that there's a question specifically on what? On accounting, and a question specifically on management accounting, where we are saying that we are not integrating, we are still trying to make sure that, one, do you understand the technical concepts? Do you have strong basics when it comes to the individual disciplines? Then, number 2, are you able to demonstrate that understanding or application under exam technique? So that is the individual exams approach. Then 2 weeks later, we are then saying that now we are going to ITC mode, where now we are saying that after you've gotten feedback in terms of where you are on the individual discipline, and you have now understood where your comfort levels are and where your focus needs to be at, then you need to then do what? You then need to be prepared to be able to handle an ITC structured exam, where now we'll be focusing on more integration, where the strategy and ethics will then be intending to integrate them through all the papers in order to help you to be well prepared for the actual exam. And then after those particular exams, then the idea is that you go on what? You go on a break. So you'll notice that in December, there are actually no classes for this particular program. And the reason for that is that we are saying that time to reflect and time to work on your own is also fundamental to your success. So we are then saying that on reflection, we want to give you that time in order to be able to work on your own, work through the question banks that we're going to give you in order to what? In order to help you secure success. So that is another key element in terms of what? In terms of how we've structured the program. Then there will be 2 sessions per discipline or per major discipline, where we spend time going through what? Where we spend time going through the 2019 exams. So you'll find that also on the timetable, the ITC reviews, which then says accounting, and you'll then do what? We'll then spend time on reviewing the accounting disciplines that were tested in those particular exam papers. Because sometimes we find that for some candidates, it's not much that is required. It could be just a fundamental shift in how you're approaching these exams, on how you are actually intending to score marks, that you actually need feedback on in order to be able to do so. So that's why for us, this particular program, the way that it's structured, it has been structured as a 2-way program where there is quite a lot of feedback at different points in time. So that is the key value that we have implemented in this particular program in order to do what? In order to help you see or secure your success in ITC 2020. So then in terms of the material, just to go through the detail of what is on that previous slide. So when it comes to the question banks, we've got 2 question banks that you'll be receiving as part of the program. So the first one you'll be receiving along with the notes, So we had expected that everything would have been sorted by today, but there was a bit of glitches with the printers. But the material will start being sent out from tomorrow throughout the weekend, hopefully to get everything out for all the candidates that have registered so far by Tuesday next week. So the idea then, just to understand what you're going to receive and how you're going to or expected to use it. The first one is what we call the foundation pack. So you're gonna get a question that comprises of short questions from us, and the short questions will be anything between 40 to 60 marks at most. And for us, it's that time where you focus on building the fundamentals, building the knowledge gaps, identifying the key problem areas. So with all these questions, all the questions in that question bank, there are videos on your portal that actually review them. So the idea is for you to get back into a rhythm, to say that, okay, I've got this question bank. Let me work on question number 1. And after I've worked on question number 1, let me mark myself. But as I'm saying, the feedback is the one that we are saying is more important that we want to achieve. So then there will be a video where you can actually go through a detailed discussion of the paper that we had with our CTA 2019 candidates, where you will then say that, all right, maybe I didn't do so well in this paper, where there's some elements that I was expected to pick up that I actually missed, and now they're costing me. And even when I reflect on my recent ITC attempt, I'm realizing that these are the things that actually prevented me from securing success. So that is what we have implemented with part 1 of the question bank. And when it comes to that, they are essentially about 8 questions per the primary disciplines. So you'll find that there's about 10 questions for accounting, 8 questions for auditing, 8 for management accounting and finance, and 8 for tax that you can work through and mark yourself and be able to do it and be able to get to the online videos. So the videos reviews, you're looking at about anything between an hour to say 1 hour 45 minutes. So it's something that you can easily plan to do maybe in the next couple of weeks, to say that maybe in the morning, let me quickly wake up, write this for an hour, and make sure that I watch for the video for the next 90 minutes. So it'll be a bit of a demanding commitment, but we want you to go through the process, or this particular process, before you actually go back into ITC exam structured papers. Because at that particular point in time, the questions could be a bit demotivating, could be a bit overwhelming at this point, to say that, wait, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? And the more you do questions and the more you are worried about that, it's so easy to end up wasting the questions that you've got. So what we are then suggesting is that from next week up until the end of September, just plan and focus on what? And focus on that particular question bank. And you will notice that in that study plan I'm talking about, we have recommended that you say week 1 is accounting, week 2 is tax, so on and so on. So that you know that you are focusing on bridging the gaps. You are focusing on understanding how well you stand against the basics. Because that is something that is so important before you actually do it, before you actually go into integrated question and thinking that they look actually much difficult than they are. Then question bank number 2 is the question that we'll be issuing at the beginning of what? Around October. So that one, it's something that we're still thinking very carefully about, to say that what will be the most impactful set of questions that will help you in terms of your studying. Trying to also take into consideration that some of the questions you might have seen before as part of your preparation for June exams, and so on and so on. So those are the questions that we're still asking ourselves in terms of what will be the most impactful number of questions, coverage of the questions, and so on and so on. So those are some of the things that by the time we get to, say, mid-September, we'll have answered, and making sure that when you get the examination pack, you've really done what? You've really understood what are the areas of your concern and actually how can you use the question bank in order for you to benefit. But the idea, as I'm saying, that the way you need to look at it is that you're going to go on a study break from the 30th of November, meaning that you will have the entire December. For some, it's actually a benefit because that's when most companies start to quiet down. So in terms of really putting quite a lot of time and effort, you are able to get through quite a lot at the beginning of December, heading to what? To the festive season. That even if you are taking a break during the festive period, it's not something that will be at a detrimental impact to your preparation, but it's something that will be well deserved after going through the intensity of the program in November, as well as the intensity of your pro studies in early December. So when you plan your work commitments to the extent that you've got the flexibility to do so, or when you plan any family commitments, it's always quite important then to really understand how the program has been structured in order to benefit you. Then the idea is that after you've gone through some of the questions, come festive, then in Jan, you sit for another mock exam. So the mock exam, again, will replicate the ITC structure. And this is the mock exam that will be, that the ITC prep guys, the first time CTA or the guys coming from CTA 2019 will be writing. So for us, we are saying that at that point, you need to give that particular assessment your best, because you've gone through all of this work now, you've had the time to really sit down and work through the question bank. So by the time you come back in Jan, you are now saying that, oh, wait, I am ready now. And as a result, giving that performance or that particular exam, your best attempt will then give you our final feedback to really see where you are actually sitting. And the way that is structured, we always take into consideration where the ITC is sitting, and next year the exam is written on the last few days of Jan. And what it then means is that after we've written the exams, you've got literally about 3 or 2 full weeks to actually address any further concerns that you might have encountered. But the idea is that every or the majority of the work will have been done now, and then the ball will be back in your park around what? Around December for you to really work through the question. And remember that even in that period, you are more than welcome to what? You are more than welcome to engage any of our lecturers in order to ensure that by the time you come to that Jan mock exam, you are well prepared. Then, as I indicated before, you've got a pack of study notes that you're going to receive, both online as well as a printed version. So based on your preference, you will have both, and you can use them at any point during the program. The tutorial, as I said, for us, that's another important element, and 400 marks tutorial questions. Sufficient time has been communicated for you to plan for the submission. And one of the things that we'll want to, or we always desire, is because you are not doing this under exam condition, please do not skip any questions. So if you are saying that the tutorial is expected to be completed 100 marks in 3 hours, we are saying that's fine if it takes you 4-5 hours. The idea is for you to really give it your best and say that if time is not an issue, if I'm not worried about time, do I really know my work? That's what we want you to answer when it comes to tutorial. Whereas with the exam, it's a balance of two. You need to demonstrate to the examiner you know your work, and you need to be able to do it under exam condition. So those are some of the things that you just need to be to be well aware of. Then in addition, we've got CTA 19 online videos. So every part of the syllabus is covered in detail. So the benefit for the majority of the disciplines that there haven't been too many changes for accounting, and MENEC you never have, and finance you probably never have, strategy and ethics and strategy. But in terms of updates, there are a couple for auditing with the new CPC that will be tested as from next year, as well as some updates on tax, especially with debt waiver type of arrangements, and so on and so on. So those are some of the ones that the videos will be very beneficial in terms of what? Of doing and bridging those particular or specific gaps. So that then summarizes what you will have as part of this particular program. And the idea, as I'm saying, is for you to really have an appreciation of it and think about how you're going to use each of those elements in order to really prepare yourself for ITC Gen. So it always looks like we've got quite a lot of time when the program starts, but if you don't prepare properly for what for the intensity of the program, for the commitment that will be demanded, it's so easy that at the end of the program you find yourself saying that maybe you could have done more, maybe you could have gotten this particular feedback, and so on and so on. So this is why for me and for us, it was important for us to publish the timetable in advance, and you have a good sense of where the pressure points are sitting and be able to plan accordingly. Are we all clear? Are there any questions? Okay. So then the detail that you'll then find here is essentially just talking about or expanding on what I've already said in terms of if you had to go back and say that, wait, what am I supposed to do with it? And as I'm saying that the foundation pack is to really ensure that what the foundational gaps are bridged, and you get to gear yourself into the intensity of the program. So for us, if you see these foundation packs as we intended, you will be able to use it accordingly and be able to benefit. And the idea is that you really need to push yourself from this point onwards. So if it's making it look like what? It's making it look like it's too much, then that is the idea to say that at the end of the day, we want you to be able to handle the pressure that actually comes with what? That actually comes with that particular exam. So those are some of the things that will really want you to just appreciate with regards to what? With regards to the elements that are there, so that you are not short at the end of the day. Then, when it comes to the examination pack, so as I said, this is something that we're really thinking carefully about in terms of how to incorporate papers for your benefit. And one thing that we always want to just clarify is that when it comes to ITC exam papers, do not download the ones from SciCam. So what we do in that particular study pack, you will find that we will have downloaded them, edited them, and make sure that they are adapted to the latest changes. So in terms of CPC, where there are CPC questions from last year or even this year, you'll find that all the reference and any wording updates will have been made in your packs. So this is just to make sure that you don't find yourself working through papers that some of the elements are no longer examinable. So that is something that will be important in terms of just recognizing and how to actually use these papers. And as I said before, the first foundational pack is got very limited integration. So you'll find that, as I'm saying, if it's an accounting question, you are dealing with accounting. Whereas when you get to the other pack, or the exam pack, as we call it, then when you do those questions, it will be set or to try to help you to get to what? To ITC type of level, where they expect you to be able to work through integrated level, integrated in terms of topic or discipline, where you can find that we are doing an acquisition, and when they're doing an acquisition, they actually issue a financial instrument. And part A says, calculate goodwill arising from this acquisition. Part B then say discuss how the financial instrument will be accounted for in the books of the company. So that's what they call this integration within a particular discipline. Then at the same time, you'll then find a situation where it's one, they're acquiring a company, and part A is asking you to calculate goodwill, and part B is saying that discuss the limitation of the valuation method that has been used. So those are the kind of questions that you can now expect from the examination pack, to say that how are you expected to now say that if you know the basics, how do you now bring it together to bridge through those type of questions that are integrated. So the majority of the questions that we're going to retain as part of the examination pack will only be the more of the long type set of questions and not short questions. So as a minimum, you'll find that the questions that will be included in the packs will be 50, and at a maximum, of course, it will be what? It will be 100. But the idea is that you will need to learn how to handle questions that are one, long, and integrated from intra-discipline, as well as what? As well as integration on an overall basis. And the objectives of this particular pack is for us, for you to be able to have improved your analytical and comprehension skills. To say that you are now comfortable in dealing with long questions, you are now comfortable in dealing with information that has got a lot of volume and that actually touches on what? On different aspects. And even if you just think about it, that when we review performance, or even when you review your performance, take a step back and say, you might be saying that, wait, I looked at that question and I thought the standard costing question was not hard. And sometimes that's the problem, because you might be looking at it in isolation. But if you go back to that specific paper, you might find that, wait, that paper started out as a costing question, then it jumped into risk, then it jumped into tax, and it concluded on ethics. That out of 100 marks paper, they tested 4 disciplines. And you might be saying that I understand the disciplines on their own, but it might be that you have not prepared to a level where you are able to comprehensively handle what? Questions that are integrated in that particular manner. So it is those small things that we just want to focus on when we have covered the foundations, to say that now that you've understood the basic, how well are you able to respond to questions that are integrated in that manner? Because they test more than your basic understanding. You really need to be able to consume a lot of information and be able to sift it and put it into what? Into the different disciplines for you to really be successful. So those are some of the things that at the end of, by the time we go on a break, you are saying that I now know what happened in that paper. As much as I found that it was not bad, I was not able to bring everything together to get me through that particular step of success. And if you're then saying that you might have passed one paper and not the other, it might be that that other paper had tested limited disciplines and it was easy for you to then deal with accounting and you are done. But it seems that ITC has moved away from that, and there's quite a lot of integration that you can expect, and that's what we want to achieve with the second phase of the program. Then, tutorials, as I said, also they're still part of what? The foundations, where we are still working through the knowledge, where we are working through the application, where we are saying that be experts of a particular discipline before we move on to ITC type of setting. So you'll then find that the tutorials that we are now looking into are the ones that, as much as they are focusing on a particular discipline, they are integrated in terms of how they interact the disciplines together. So those are some of the things that we just need to what? We just need to be on the lookout for and be able to overcome before the end of the program. And one of the things that I have seen, and this comes quite strongly when we are doing script reviews, is that candidates that tend to skip questions, that tends to work quite a lot against them. And this is where we are saying that start here when you learn those things. Make sure that when you're submitting or when you're working through the tutorials, if you work through and said, I'm setting it out for Saturday, and you find that, oh wait, this is actually a challenging tutorial, don't allow yourself to submit incomplete tutorial. But go back and say, maybe I'll just need to come back. Maybe there's some things that I didn't understand. Based on my schedule, I'm still able to quickly go and review that and be able to come back before submission date and make sure that I've put quite a lot of effort into it. So that is something that I will strongly encourage you to do when it comes to the tutorial. Make sure that by the time you submit, you've given it your best. Because the other element or the key element for us, back to you, is to say that if you are to be given feedback, I don't want you to give me another feedback after you've been given feedback to say that, I realized I ran out of time. I realized that I actually didn't see the submission date. I actually realized that I didn't want to, but I want you to say that you've really given that tutorial your very best, and when you get the feedback from the lecturing team, you are saying that this is really where I am and this is what I actually need. So that is the idea when with us with regards to what? With regards to these tutorials. And the type of questions, again, it'll be a very good balance of discursive, which is something that still is a concern for most candidates, disclosure, calculations, and other type of questions that we might consider to be what? We might consider to be appropriate. Then, the communication guidelines, this is something that is published for public consumption by SAICA to all the candidates sitting for the exam. So this is where they just clarify that if a question has a logical argument mark, they are looking for X. If it's got a clarity of expression, they are looking for Y. And I always encourage candidates to say that consider this a separate discipline as well. Because when you review your script, do not just skip those marks, but go back and really say what? And really say that, how did I do? I hear that there were actually 28 marks here. How many marks did I get? Because you don't want to get to that point where you are saying that there were 28 marks and you got 10. It means that you've lost a good opportunity to get some of the 18 marks that you will have what? That you will have needed not to study more for. But you just needed to demonstrate a good exam technique and an ability to respond to the required that is posed by the examiner. So the guideline will be included as part of your question pack. And for me, it's something that you need to just read once. You don't need to probably refer to it again. If you read it once, you get a very good sense of what SAICA is looking for and also become aware and mindful when you attempt questions. Then when it comes to course delivery, for those 2 days that are committed for the various disciplines, the idea for us is to then spend time working through some of the complex area. And the idea is not that this is not in the videos, but for us is just to highlight how some of the topics are elevated at an ITC level. To say that, yes, you might have gone through the video and you might have worked through the example and you might have now understood, but you might then get to a point to say that, how can this be complicated at an ITC level? How can this be integrated with other topics? So when we actually focus on what? When we actually deliver the program, we take those things into account, and our intention is not to repeat a lecture that is already there, but it's actually to start re-emphasizing and, as I said, elevating some of the topics in terms of how they can be integrated and tested in various settings. So that is something that you just need to be what? You just need to be well aware of. And then, in terms of the prioritization matrix, we always consider what we also have seen in ITC to say, this is a topical issue. This is something that ITC has been on the hot for in terms of they like it, and it's either in a discursive or in calculation and so on and so on. Those are some of the things that we take into consideration. Like valuation is something that for psycho, you know that you cannot go into an exam without having what? Mastered valuation. So those are the kind of things that we just want you to be comfortable with before the exam, essentially. So you'll then, and then the next part will then be what? Will then be the script review. So the script review, as I'm saying, that we've also taken time to really review that particular process. And for us to be able to formalize it, we've got deadlines this time around to say that it will be ideal for you to submit your script to us by 15 September. And we are then committing back to say by 15 October, you'll have received your script reviews. And the idea here is that it's a lengthy process that we want to really make sure that by the time you get that review report, you actually look at it and get to understand where lies the problem. A lot of candidates that also made it in ITC June, they said to us that some of the content in the report was not the most pleasing of things that they wanted to hear, but at the end of the day, they said that it was something that they needed to know was impacting their performance. That when you get it, it might be a situation where you are realizing that, wait, I was short of 20 marks, but these 20 marks were all the marks that I probably did not need to go back and study so much for. That whatever I actually understood was probably enough. I just needed to do 1, 2, 3. And the timing for us, 15 October, is that by the time by this time, we will have gone through the ITC 2019 reviews. So when you get your script, when you get your script report and you've got those videos to work with, and you've got a more comprehensive understanding of the issues that probably led to an unsuccessful outcome during the year. So it is then quite opportune of you to then say that, all right, these are the problems that have been identified. So if I'm to go into these exams that have been set, I should not, or I should aim not to make the same mistakes. So this will then come through way ahead of what? Way ahead of the exams that are scheduled into the program. So that when you go to the individual exams, you are now clear that these are your problems and these are the things that you need to consciously be thinking of avoiding. Then the script report that you get on average is about, I think, 15 to 20 pages, depending on the detail as well as the number of questions in the paper. And it is prepared by a multidisciplinary team, meaning that we've got a team that looks at auditing, and the auditing content is then doing what? The auditing content is reviewed by someone who is a specialist in auditing, someone who's specialist in finance, and so on and so on. So you'll find that the review is quite detailed, and even the tone of the review changes throughout the report. So those are some of the things that are what? Intentional, but at the end of the day, it's coherent because it will be highlighting what went wrong, what are some of the easy marks that you could have picked up, and these are some of the things that you really need to be on the lookout for. Then, as I said, one of the things that we're going to incorporate is to grade your script against what? Against that guideline that we've shared at the beginning of what? At the beginning of the discussion. So you'll then be able to say that I've got a problem with ethics, I've got a problem with strategy, I've got a problem with accounting, and so on and so on. So that is something that we really want to clearly highlight when it comes to what? When it comes to this particular report, and incorporate the specific questions that are in what? That are in that second question bank, so that after you receive it, then you know that if I want to really attend to this particular problem, then if I do this question, I'll be mindful of this issue, and I'll be able to do what? I'll be able to work through those particular issues. So in terms of just to make it easier and also efficient when you send your scripts for review, please include the outcome letter. So the outcome letter, we just use it as well in order to what? In order to just capture the marks and also have a high-level review of what or which papers of critical concern to our candidates. Then number 2 is you need to include the report from the online marking tool. So that is the one that will say that this is the entire memo and these are the marks that you've secured and so on and so on. And lastly, you need to include what? Your actual handwritten script. So it's a very thorough process. So it's not as a simple case of us just looking at the marks and saying that, no, this is something that a candidate that got 10 here, it means they don't know 1, 2, 3. But we actually review the handwritten script and we review it against the memo and we say that, but these are some of the marks that you could have easily scored, and these are some of the marks that you missed, and so on and so on. So that is something that we take quite importantly, and will want you to really also pay attention to and pay commitment to in terms of what? In terms of the feedback that you'll get as part of that. So as I'm saying, that the critical aspect of the program is the two-way review process. To say that at the end of the day, you should not come into the program and be able to talk about generally what candidates struggle with. But you should be able to say that I understood that this was my problem and this is my strategy that is going to work for me. So that you are able to handle your problems in what? In an individualized or personalized manner. That at the end of the day, after all, the one that sits for the paper, whether it's a situation of the paper is difficult for everyone and so on, it's of lesser relevant. You need to make sure by the time you go in, you're well covered. Then this just talks simply about what? About the delivery relating to the individual disciplines. Then, yes, so I think that's something that you'll just get to see and get to what? To read in detail at your leisure as you go through this. Then, just to close up with just a recap of some of the things that we've caught up on the prep exam. So, 3 critical exam sessions, 3 weekends that you need to fully commit to. Individual exams, the prep exams, the ITC prep exams at the end of November, and the second one at what? At the beginning of January 2020. So all the papers are written over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And as I'm saying, we try our best to simulate ITC exam structure, but in addition, we've got what? We've got review classes. So with the review classes, this is where now we provide you with what? With the general feedback. But by that time, you will have gotten your script. And you'll then say that, oh, wait, I actually did well in this particular paper and I did not do so well here. So when we come to the general review, we'll be focusing on some of the general feedback. But as you're going through the scripts, you've got what? You've got your own type of what? You've got your own personalized feedback in terms of where you went wrong and what you need to do going forward. So that is something that a lot of candidates have said to us, that is the part that is of value, to get that feedback and also be able to get a general feedback and be able to identify some of the concerns that I might have had. So that is something that is quite important with regards to what? With regards to these prep exams. And in addition as well, the timing, we are always mindful of it. So generally for Jan, you will have noticed, or if you have ever seen a previous timetable, this used to be at the beginning of, it used to be on a first weekend of the month, but because the first weekend of the month is actually the 3rd or the 2nd of Jan, we thought we'll push it out a bit to have the assessment so that at least if you are traveling, you can you can still spend your New Year's celebration with your family, wherever you might be, and then still be able to what? To travel back safely to Joburg, relax, and have that 1 week where you're actually preparing for the exams. And the 10th and 11th, that's when we'll be able to sit for it. Within a week's time, we'll have completed the marking, and we'll have then done what? We'll have completed the marking, and we'll then give you feedback as part of those review session. So that is essentially how the entire program has been what? Has been structured in order to benefit you. But as I'm saying, the idea for us is the feedback part. And it only works if there is input from your side in terms of the submission, in terms of coming to sit for those assessments and making sure that you really benefit from the team in terms of the kind of insights that they'll provide for you at the end of the day. The idea for us is we want to make sure that everyone comes out with a successful outcome in Jan 2020. And a lot of effort is both from your side and also from our side. So from our side, we know that, or we've recognized that we need to give you things that are beneficial, assessments that are relevant, and talks to what SAICA expects from you. So we want to be able to see where you are, how well you are progressing over the program. Are there any questions? How will you summarize, or what will you say are the top 3 things that you're specifically requiring in order to get through? What are those 3 things that you can say, I need to get this right before the program finishes, and if I do, then I know I'm coming back with it? What are those? Thinking about maybe what you experienced during the sitting of the actual exam, thinking about what you have seen from your scripts review, probably the ones you've done it yourself, or maybe someone did them independently. What would you say are the things that you are looking for? Yes.
I would say for me, I'm looking forward to the feedback on the scripts review, because I've written ITC 3 times and I've got the same marks. Almost 3. Yeah, it's like as if they haven't marked giving me the same marks.
Okay.
And I know in this ITC that you just wrote, I missed the list question completely, but I was hoping that they were going to mark the alternative, of which I don't even know if the alternative was right. So basically for me, when you guys give me the feedback on the script review, because I'm going to see what am I missing completely, because I feel like I've requested scripts before and I've gone through my scripts, and I've seen that when I miss something, I miss it completely. But I'm like, for how long am I going to keep on missing something? So it means I'm missing basics also, certain basics somewhere. Yeah.
All right.
That's what I'm looking for.
And that's a very interesting point, because I remember someone even raised a similar point, and they say in ITC, if you miss the issue, you really miss the question. Because if there's that hidden element that you're supposed to just recognize, and then you'll say, I will have worked through, even if I don't get anything, but I understand what they want from me. If you get that right, you're able to really at least give the attempt a fair chance. But if you miss the issue altogether, then that's something that becomes a key concern. And I agree with you fully. And that, to me, it usually comes with that point of developing the analytical and comprehension skills, to say that when you are reading, how do you pick up key points that are relevant to your knowledge or to your basic, so that it can trigger them and you're able to then demonstrate it when you answer different type of questions. Yes.
Momentary, I'm at the point point where I don't know what I know anymore, because I feel like I don't know anything. But I know that I know something. But I'm like, why do I keep on missing something that's so big that I should have just got like that? So for me, I hope this course is going to make sure that I cover all my basics. And then I've told myself I'm going to be diligent. So I'm
just going
to be committed. And I'm just going to try, I'm going to give it my best.
And I think that's the, let me call it a frustrating concern a lot of candidates are talking to say that at this point, I really don't know where to go. I really don't know where to go. And that's why for us, the foundation basic to say, let's go back to the specific discipline and be able to see that, wait, maybe that I had gaps that I was not even sure of. Now these gaps are coming out quite clearly, so that by the time we get to more integrated type of questions, you are now clear that these were the issues that you never understood so well, and now that you do. So that is fundamentally the idea behind the September gap foundation phase, to say, let's go back to those basics and see where the shortfalls are actually lying. So it'll be good to then get to those tutorials and then say that the counting still is a problem, but finance, I'm fine, and so on and so on. So those are some of the objectives as part of this program. So that's fair. Anything else?
I was going to say, going back to basics, like for example, me, I hate valuations, so I didn't touch them at all. And then come the second day of the exam, I was like, there was a question on it.
Yes,
and
yes.
I picked it because I was like, I haven't looked at this since like undergrad or something.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm hoping to go back to all my basics and then know, yeah.
Okay. So that's that. Any Sean?
I think for me it would be a case of the required. Maybe because I realized that I missed a lot of things on the required. Like for instance, the valuation question she mentioned, it said at the bottom, assume, state down any assumption that you made. And I didn't even see it until someone mentioned to me after the exam.
Okay.
And I didn't see quite a lot of things in the required that, you know, when you're discussing outside, when people mention, you're like, I didn't see that. So for me, it would be a case of maybe a technique in reading the required properly and really knowing what they're asking for.
All right, so yeah, so the assessments then will go a long way for you in terms of getting that part right. Yes.
I know some candidates have mentioned that when they read the ITC question, they read it twice. But I'm like, under the exam condition, for me, I find it impossible at this stage. Maybe at the end of this course, I'll say, maybe in January, it's possible to read it twice. Because I'll read it once, and then I try and mark as much thing as I possibly can. But most people that have come across, they've said they read it twice. I'm like, where did you get the time to read it twice? Because you still have to plan for this thing again. So for me, yeah, the time, I just want to get it right and get the marks, but I have not been successful.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. And I'm also one of the proponents for reading the required twice. I believe that's an important element, just to really get that level of detail to say what is the issue and have I gotten it right.
Not the
Yes.
the paper.
You mean the actual paper?
Yeah, they read the paper twice. Because
That's
run through, and then they read it now nicely again the second time. Only have 30 minutes.
I know some people are fast reading. I'm not one of those.
Okay.
That is, I'm not fast. Yes.
I understand.
Yes.
Because sometimes I've seen that it's English, because I know that my English is not at the highest. yeah. So
I think ITC's English is at a higher level on its own. Yes.
But sometimes it's like you understand what they are asking you to do, because you're like, okay, the question is saying X, but you understood that it's saying Y. Why did you miss the fact that it's saying X?
Okay. Yeah, no, I think reading the scenario twice is quite a task. I mean, even when I'm reading it outside exam technique, it can take me around a good 15 to 20 minutes And I'm thinking under exam scenario, I'm expected to remember all those things, whereas when I'm just reading outside the exam, I'm just paging back and say, oh, but under exam technique, it has to stick. But twice, it seems to be a bit of a stretch. But I know some people read fast. Yes, so I think that could be quite specific. Yeah. Sure.
I guess for me as well, it's just getting feedback on my scripts, and I guess interacting, when we start studying, and I'm really gonna, I said this time around, I'm gonna put all my effort, and I've written it 3 times as well, and you get to a stage where you don't know where to start again, and I thought I'd put more effort, but now that you say that some of the questions are no longer relevant. I don't know, maybe that was my downfall. I really don't know. So I guess, I just need direction and guidance, I guess.
Okay, no, that's fair.
And technique, maybe that's what I'm lacking on.
No, that's absolutely, yes. No, that's absolutely fair. Got something to share? Are you good?
I feel like everyone has just some everything that I wanted to say, but I also think I need to just work on my basic gap knowledges, because I feel like there's something that I'm missing. I've also written 3 times. However, on my side, the marks are decreasing. So every time when I feel like, okay, I think I've put more effort this time around, it comes the other way around. So I think maybe I lack the basic. I lack the basic knowledge.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I think even for as I'm saying about this year's attempt, that the change in how the paper is structured probably makes the marks no longer comparable to what you're getting now, because the increase of weighting on the other topics, it means that you probably were focusing on the major topics from CTA level, but now you are now saying that no, CTA seems that its emphasis is being, or maybe depending on where you come from, that the CTA knowledge has to be coupled up with things like strategy, something that is not necessarily a separate discipline in ITC, in CTA and ethics. Because as I'm saying, that those, if you check, they are accounting for a minimum of 60 to 120 marks. And if you are probably comparing your last year and Jan, you are saying that there was 40 marks of ethics that was not there. And now, if you didn't do so well in that, it means that your marks could have just declined by that ethics component. And now you're saying that, what am I doing wrong? And it might be that you just need to change also the focus and then dedicate more time to this new structure that they've got. So that's something that I think it's also quite important when you compare your performance from last year compared to the 2 sittings for Jan and June. That there's a fundamental change in how the structure of the exam is at. So that's something that I will say, that just be mindful of that, so that you don't seem that you are declining and there's no light to it at the end of the day. So it could be that once you've now seen these things differently, you'll then be able to do what? You'll then be able to get them right. So, as I said, for me, that was the critical element. When it comes to study approach, the specific lecturer for the different disciplines are going to spend quite a lot of time in terms of what? In terms of what works. And as I said, the changes that we've made in terms of also taking the shift to say auditing, ethics and government are separate discipline. We are hoping that will also contribute to how you think and also approach the exam. So those are some of the things that we just want to strongly emphasize as part of the program. And for us, the way that we've said that in terms of the basics and application, this is something that we've also taken a step back and thought about to say, what makes a candidate successful? That one, a candidate has to know their work. They need to know what they're going to be tested on. And two, they need to be able to see the issues as they arise in a paper that talks to comprehension skills. And lastly, they need to be able to do all those under exam condition, under time constraints, and be able to identify the easy marks and make sure before time runs out that they've given a decent attempt to what? To the examiner. But for me, as I'm saying that apart from this fundamental picture that we've got, the respective lecturers will spend a lot of time in terms of what? In terms of going through the detail and specific guidance that is applicable to different disciplines. But for you, I think this is something that you can work through in terms of preparing for the program and for the classes before we actually kick it off. But maybe before we do, so in terms of delivery, by the way, there is what we call the front team and also the back, so the front office and the back office. So the lecturers that will be delivering the program, there are three of us. So it will be myself who will be delivering accounting, as well as management, accounting, finance, strategy, and risk management. Then one of our lecturers is Kumu. He's the one that is looking after the auditing discipline, as well as governance and ethics. So that's the lecturer number 2, and I'll give him an opportunity to just say a few words before we call it a night. The third one is not going to be able to join us tonight, but his name is Madodonke, and he's the one that looks after text for us. So those are the lecturers that you'll be seeing throughout this particular program. On the videos, there are 2 more lecturers or 3 more lecturers that you'll interact with or that you'll get an opportunity to experience. But we work together, and in terms of the work, they will be focusing more on the ITC prep program, as well as supporting this particular program in terms of script reviews, in terms of marking, in terms of preparing all this assessment. So that's essentially how the team is structured, but we always believe it's quite important for us to be well-resourced in order to deliver a high-quality program at the end of the day. So maybe before we call it a night, we can then get an opportunity to meet Kumu, and then we'll call it a night, yes. Then, as I'm saying, please keep this with you as you come to lectures, and then we'll touch on some of the elements as we go through the detail. So if you got any questions, we'll be around for a couple of minutes after we conclude, and then we'll do it, and then we'll be able to leave it there. Then delivery will kick off during the course of the week.
Right. Hello, everyone. How are you? Good. My name is Kumu. I always start by introducing myself, and if you guys don't put me back in line, I will take a lot of time telling you about me, but I need to know more about you. So I work for PwC in the Audit and Technical Division. As part of my job, I spend time at ERBA. Who knows ERBA? Hopefully you all know ERBA, right? The RBA Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors, setting auditing standards. So your standards like your SAPS 3, your SAPS 4, we set that. I'm a technical advisor on the Committee for Auditing Standards at ERBA. I pretty much came through Endunamo. I did my CTA with Endunamo. Made it, and then eventually started lecturing BCTA. I also lecture CTA and now board course ITC level. So I pretty much understand from where you're sitting. I've seen the journey through. I know what it takes, and my passion is really mentoring students and teaching and getting them cross the line and be where we are. I know everybody wants to be CASA, that's why you're sitting here. So for me, what's important at ITC level is your study approach, your exam technique, and your exam technique is usually the difference between 198 and 200. You're required to get 400, isn't it? Good. So as I was listening and as I was sitting at the back there, I had people saying you missed out, you left a question because you never studied a question and you never studied the topics and things like that. But that is usually the trap in ITC. You tend to want to leave certain marks where you could have recouped even 5 marks that will help you pass. When you look at your marks, you're probably sitting at 196 and you only needed 4. So how about, as part of my auditing course, if you are attempting a question in your tutorial or is exam prep, if I require 10 marks from a point and you don't write at least 6, I won't mark it. Is that fair? Yes, because that will force you to start writing the points. It doesn't matter if you don't like that topic, but that could be the difference in passing. 1 mark could actually make a difference. So don't worry, I'm going to be here, hold your hand as we do auditing and we'll cross together. I don't want to say much, but do we struggle with auditing? Yes. Most students say they hate auditing, but for me, auditing is my passion. I love auditing. I live the ISA. So hopefully by the end of the course, you will also love auditing, and when we write ITC next year in Jan, that's it, right? You will be, they'll use your paper as a marking scheme. Would you like that? Okay, so is there anything that you want me to be focusing on in auditing? Is there anything that you struggle with? Don't say ethics, because I know everybody struggles with ethics. That I know is a given. Is there anything else that you struggle with?
I struggle with audit procedures.
Audit procedures. Okay. Substantive audit procedures, test of controls. Good. By the end of the course, that would be the easiest part for auditing for you. I've seen students struggle from how do I even start to write a procedure. But don't worry, in class we'll address how you even start with a procedure until you can write audit procedures, because the key would be on your source documents that will address that. And for me, the other thing that is very important is questions. You can go back and read the ISAs and all those things, but if you don't practice the questions, that's when you usually get the shock in the exam. I've never seen this. For me, for auditing, don't come to class if you don't have your ISA handbooks. You have to bring them to class. Bring your handbooks, bring your flags, and I'll show you why. Because sometimes they ask you for 15 marks on audit procedures from subsequent events. You don't know where to start. But do you know that your ISA handbook has all those procedures listed for you already? So I want to show you how to use your handbooks as well to give you an advantage to pass, because most people say, I've never seen this. I see people pulling trolley bags with pretty flags and acting like they know everything, but I don't know how to use the ISA book. So I'm going to show you how to use the ISA book for those that struggle with the ISA book, the Companies Act, the APA, and the King 4, right? So you will know where to find everything, and all you need to do is practice questions. Anything else that you struggle with? Risks. Okay? Risk is always our starting point, so I guess your story will be sorted in the very first 30 minutes of the lecture, hey? Hopefully. Okay, we'll address risks as well. It's a key component. It's very important. Even in practice, risks is quite a topical issue. Okay, what else do we struggle with?
I was going to say substantive.
Okay, do we struggle with Companies Act?
Yes. The problem is how to to apply it.
How to apply it?
I find myself copying what's in the book, but when it comes to application, it comes from me.
So you usually find yourself in that trap of copy and paste the requirement of the, and usually when we mark, I'll be like, I know the requirements. Don't give me the requirements. I need you to apply. So you struggle with the application, right? Don't worry, we will address that as well. Okay. What else do we struggle with?
I would say what I struggle with is writing too much. Meaning you go overboard and then you find that the stuff is required, it's only a few.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to show you how to be guided by the required and the effective exam technique when you're answering the questions. Because sometimes those are the trap questions. You write 2 pages when they only wanted 4 marks. It's not going to change that. They wanted 4 marks. Then if you write a lot, you still get 4 marks maximum. Okay. So I will also try and address that component of exam technique. Okay. What else do we struggle with? Is that
understanding and interpretation of the question.
Of the question, right. So as part of this course, I'm going to show you how to read a scenario, how to read the required, how to interpret what they want, how to pick up marks in the required. Because many of the times you see that they want 20 marks from a paragraph that is this short and you don't know what to do. Don't worry, we will get there. By the end of the course, you'll be able to know what's happening. Okay, you'll see it. Sounds like it's a fake mission now, but don't worry. You'll see once class starts. And also, I would encourage you to make sure that you attempt all your tutorials, attempt all your prep exams. Because if I don't see what you've written, it's difficult to tell what you're struggling with. So I won't know how to help you. So if you physically attempt that question, I can actually see, oh, okay, this is where we're going wrong, and I know how to address it. Okay, because we do give you that feedback, and we actually take time to actually see what's happening. Okay, where you're doing right, I can actually tell you that keep doing this right. Here you need to fix 1, 2, 3. And the only way for me to know is when you do the attempt. If you don't attempt, it's going to be difficult. I can only see from our interaction in class and when you answer questions that, okay, I need to address here and there. But if you actually do the tutorial, then it's going to be very helpful. So I encourage you to do it. It's quite helpful. It might seem scary, but you will see as we go along. Okay, happy.
Okay, let's say in terms of answering controls questions, you need to understand the cycles. So now my question is, how do I study the cycles? Because I feel like, should I use the auditing book, or should I just use the tutorial pack that has been provided?
Okay, so in class there's a technique I'm going to show you on identifying controls. And we are going to discuss the cycles, but I'm not going to dwell so much on the cycles because from what I believe, if you understand the source documents, you are going to understand how to come up with your procedures. So I'm going to show you the technique in class on how you do it. Okay.
Are you Brendan? No. Okay. So he mentioned that there's a new CPC. Okay. We're using old textbook. How important is it that we can use textbook or still rely on?
So if you can afford to buy a new textbook, by all means, please do. What has changed in the CPC, in the Code of Professional Conduct, is that effective from 15 June, the ISPA issued a new code that is effective. So SAICA, ERBA have adopted that. The difference is in the old code, you had Part A, Part B, and then you had Section 290 and Section 291. Part A dealt with fundamental principles. Part B dealt with CA, is it in practice? And then Part C, CA in public practice. Right. Is that right? Maybe I've confused B and C. So what the new code has is got Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Part 1 is your fundamental principles, corresponds with your Part A. Part 2 is CAs in public practice, I think, and Part 3 in business. So it goes hand in hand with your Part A and Part B. So with your Part B and Part C. And then Section 290 dealt with independence requirements in when you're in public practice, when you're in auditing. That's your Part 4A in the new code. Section 291 dealt with independence in your other assurance engagements. That's your Part 4B in your new code. So you can see that the principles are the same, just with enhancements, and they've just changed the titles of the parts. So I can try and link and give you some references that apply to both, but I would encourage you, if you can afford to buy one. If you can't, don't worry, I can show you where to flag as well, and let's see how it works. Okay, is that fair enough?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Happy? So, oh, no questions for me? No? I like questions, that's how you learn. But good, I'm looking forward to seeing you in class and showing you how audit works. Okay, great. This is not mine.
All right, so that's that will be essentially it, and we'll conclude today's session. So a lot of interaction and communication will come throughout the program via WhatsApp, via emails, and also calls, so just be on the lookout for that. But in terms of material, communication will be made tomorrow, and as I said, delivery will kick off tomorrow. So most of the face-to-face, you'll get it by the weekend, and the online, probably that depends on our courier, but they're quite quick. So we're hoping that by next week, Wednesday, everybody will have the material. But that shouldn't stop you from studying. Access to the portal in terms of videos and lecture material is available online. So thank you for joining us tonight and also during the program. So we look forward to it. Good night.